Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted to have all of you here and truly appreciate you taking the time to join us. I'm Camille, part of the Business Alliance team of Assessment Analytics, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session entitled Spark Setting Foundation for First Time Managers. This session is part of our series of 20 complimentary webinars in celebration of AAI's 20th year. So we hope to see you in the upcoming sessions as well. Please also note that this session is being recorded and may be shared on our social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Ray will be posting the links in the chats, so feel free to follow us there. Now, once again, welcome to today's session. Stepping into a management role is exciting, but it can be also challenging. Many first time managers are promoted because of strong individual performance, yet often receive little formal preparation for the leadership responsibilities ahead. This can create a readiness gap at a critical stage in their growth. In this webinar, we will explore how to bridge that gap by understanding why many new managers feel unprepared, how to support the important identity shift from personal execution to leading through others, and practical framework that help build confidence, coaching capabilities, and sustainable delegation. Whether you're an aspiring leader, a new manager, or someone passionate about developing future leaders, today's session is designed to provide valuable insights and actionable strategies. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Danica Regina G. Caynap. Dr. Danica is a seasoned leadership consultant and capability builder with nearly 2 decades of experience developing people and organizations across the Asia Pacific region. She is the founder and president of Torch Training and Consulting, where she partners with local and multinational companies, government agencies, and SMEs to design transformational programs in leadership development, organizational effectiveness, and capability building. She holds a PhD in leadership studies from Ateneo de Manila University, where she also served as a lecturer at the John Gokongwei School of Management. She brings a powerful combination of academic rigor and real-world commercial expertise from organizations such as Unilever Philippines and Philippine Airlines. With her extensive background in leadership development, first-time manager coaching, and organizational transformation, we are confident that today's session will equip us with meaningful tools to better shape the next generation of leaders. Without further ado, Dr. Danica Kainap, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I know it's a Thursday, but it's also the last day before a long weekend. So I am thinking that that is one of the reasons why we are joined by many of our friends today. I'm very excited to be here. And thank you so much to AAI for this wonderful invitation. Today, we are going to be talking about a crisis. It's not the crisis that we are all feeling, and hopefully it's tapering already. The fuel crisis that has, beset the country, but also the world. But it's about a crisis that has been ongoing for many of the organizations, but maybe not all have responded. And now is really an important time to look into it because many of the things that are happening right now are actually what we are seeing is that a lot of the managers are really feeling the struggle as we speak. So I just want to make sure that you are seeing my screen and it is the correct screen. All right. Thank you so much. I'm seeing Anthony. Thank you so much for your thumbs up right there. Thank you. So, many of you, maybe in the HR space, maybe consulting, and in the organizations that you have been working with, many of you can probably relate from your own experience and maybe from witnessing it that, somebody performs well and they get promoted everybody extends their congratulations, depending on the organization, it may be, a very elaborate way of celebrating it. And then that's it. After a few months, we find these same people overwhelmed with their new roles. No transition, no particular preparation, unsure of how to go about, especially managing people and managing the increased number of tasks that they have to handle. And looking back at my own experience, I was actually very fortunate because the first time I was asked to handle manage people, our vice president at the time, the company that I was in, it's a multinational company, was very much invested in leadership development, and so we had actually a program that was called New Managers Onboarding, and I particularly remember this because there were 10 topics that was listed, and every quarter, no, so it was a quarterly leadership session. All the managers from across different functions would join in, and two particular topics really caught my eye, and it was particularly intimidating, kaya siguro tandang-tanda ko siya. It was hiring and firing. And for a new manager, sabi ko, oh my gosh, will I be experiencing that? And it was not in that particular organization, but years after, working with another group, I actually had to be involved in that particular exercise. And so I recalled, and I was very grateful that I had undergone that particular onboarding. But sadly, not all that I have really talked to and journeyed with have had the same experience. No, in fact, mentioned earlier, I had the privilege of working with in the airline industry and telco industry, and a lot of them we see are going through what we call this experience of sink or swim. You get promoted, and you know good luck. you know uh kind of figure it out, as you go. And here we see that promotions are actually seen as rewards and the end already of a career milestone. And this gap is actually felt across different levels and different facets of the organization, no, this big gap. I would say that the transitioning managers, it's not just the new managers, no, first time managers, although a majority of them would probably be able to relate with that. But it's managers that have expanded roles, that have moved laterally, but they were not necessarily prepared for what was coming. And here, sadly, I had a conversation, and I'd actually screen captured our conversation, but just so we can cut straight to the story. This is a high potential manager, recently joined and was being groomed to take over the position of the line manager. However, many of those in the department have kind of like a negative feedback regarding this manager, and many of them have actually either quit or transfer or request the transfer to another department. And so this young high potential, not yet a manager but was about to, sought my advice, no, and was asking, do I quit? What do I do? I want the post, but it doesn't seem enticing. It's not appealing. Why? Because they're seeing their managers so stressed, so overwhelmed. And sometimes that environment can become quite toxic. And so the attraction to be promoted seemed to be waning, no? Instead of it being an exciting part of the journey, no, to kind of move up or move forward, it was the opposite. They were quite disillusioned. And I would say, and I would think, no, if some of you can relate, maybe you can give a thumbs up here. That many of the young ones, especially, are not so excited about the prospect or the idea of getting promoted. Parang, no thanks. Even if you put a carrot there and say, okay, maybe you will get X benefits, etc. Parang, I'd rather stay in my current position, right? And this reality is not just felt by the managers themselves, the individuals, but the HR managers, no? And there are many of us in this room, right? That it will definitely impact them. How? Because your leadership pipeline will be in danger, will be at risk, because who else are we going to promote? Who else is going to take up those positions? So obviously, business can't grow. And we will find that those who have stayed are actually kind of negatively rewarded in that sense, right? Because they have to take up the cudgels of the responsibilities. And obviously, you can imagine that executives, business owners would also have this worry about what do we do about the succession? And what do we do about the execution of the vision and the strategy, which our top management, our executives are very good at, but who is left to execute that in the middle? And that is the big gap that we are talking about. And so we have studies that are supporting this as well. And we're seeing that, 60% of new managers, according to studies, have never received any formal training. 50% of them leave, like the one that I was sharing earlier about this young high potential, because their manager, did not provide this environment where it was, appealing or conducive for really taking that next step. And only 26% really felt that they were ready to lead. No, they were ready to take up that next set of responsibility when they were promoted. And so this is an issue. This is a problem because the truth of the matter is we promote people for past performance, right? I mean, and if we think about it, yes, that makes sense. But the thing is, what about the next step? We don't prepare the future leaders for their next set of responsibilities. And sadly, I am in the training space and in the development space, and I know this to be true that developing and sometimes training in general can be seen by some, I'm not saying all, training is seen as a cost. But I believe it's high time that it is seen as an investment, right? An investment, and particularly for developing our new leaders. And so we need to shed light on this one because, again, middle managers are critical in organizations, and they influence the engagement, they influence retention, and obviously they influence performance. So let me just take a quick um, uh, maybe survey here, no, and maybe here I will ask our poll question. I just wanted to get a sense, a pulse of where we are in your organization. No, has your organization first? Have they already recognized that this is actually something to be addressed? And if it is already recognized, what steps has your organization taken in addressing this crisis? So varying degree, no, not all situations are actually covered in this, but maybe to some of you, you already recognize the crisis and are already taking steps to address it. And if so, maybe you can share in the chat box, are there concerns, challenges that you are meeting as you are rolling out these steps, no, in developing your new managers? To some, you recognize the crisis, but maybe are unsure or you feel not yet equipped, no, to address this particular crisis. And the third is you recognize the crisis too, but it's not a priority. No, it's not something. And maybe the last is you don't see this as crisis, no, for whatever reason your organization might have. So I'll give you just a few seconds. Maybe if you can just um share with us where you are, no, in terms of how your organization has seen this particular phenomenon. Yeah. So a couple more. And here I will maybe circle to our um chat. I think I saw some people who were um answering our chat. No, I love it. Thank you so much for that. I hope my toolbar will show in a little while. Okay. There you go. Thank you so much. Ayan. Okay. There you go. There are some who are um affirming the experience. Yes, the acceptance of the process. All right. Thank you. Okay. Um Can we see the results now? All right, thank you so much. Okay, so good. More than 50%, close to 60%, is saying that they recognize and are already taking the steps to address this, which is fantastic. And maybe to that, I would love to know if there are challenges that you are seeing, or you guys are already on track and are confident with the way that you are responding to this crisis. And but the next one, and I would say that this is where also a lot of organizations are, they are unsure of how best to address it, or feel the lack of skills, which is actually what we will be really looking into for the rest of our discussion. So thank you so much for participating with this. I'm glad that only few, for I understand maybe there will be reasons for this. We don't see it yet as crisis, but there we go. So this is really happening. And so from here, how I would like to proceed is that I'd like to discuss the transition shifts, right? If we are saying that there is a gap, no, how do we now look at the shifts? And second is the current gaps that organizations might be having that we need to address, or we are recommending to address. And the third is suggested action. So we don't want you to leave this room empty handed in this discussion. So I'd like to note now the transition shifts, as what we say. And these transition shifts look at three dimensions of evolution. The first of which is identity. Obviously, from being an individual contributor, when you now have to handle more people, there will be an impact to how the self is viewed. So, who we are as leaders will be greatly influenced. The second is impact. So now that it's not just about me, I have to deal with stakeholders more regularly, and they are also dependent on me now, how I influence them. And the last is capability, and to which I think the survey reflects that, no, a lot of people recognize it. So it's one thing to know, but what to do about it is another. So I'd like to explore this a little bit and look into the first one, which is the identity shift. No, so from doing the work to enabling others to do the work. And when I was taking my doctorate, the first one of the first things that we did in the first semester was actually go on leadership retreats, take profiling exams and tests, assessments, to understand the self. And it kind of baffled me at first, because entering into that particular step in postgraduate, I was thinking, I was in the frame of mind of, okay, I'm going to understand how others, or the phenomenon of leadership, and how it is actually lived out and experienced. But the surprising thing, and which I'm very grateful for as well, is it looked inward first. And I remember we would have there was like a full weekend where we had these exercises that really surfaced a lot of the things that we ourselves as individuals were experiencing, our struggles, our perceptions. And it is because self-awareness really is key. Leadership develops through an increase in self-awareness. Think about that. Leadership develops through an increase in self awareness. Because, of course, how we view ourselves impact how we see other people, how we relate with other people, how we engage with them. And especially in high pressure situations where we are asked to make decisions, where we are asked to make tough choices, where we are asked to make difficult conversations. Of course, it's going to bring about our own tendencies. Sometimes we can't control it, no? Lumalabas na lang. Or we see it in other people, no? Um, in high pressure situations, I remember one of the things we learned was uncertainty is the spotlight that reveals leadership. And in leadership, especially when you are, new to a role, there are a lot of uncertainties. Um, I remember this phrase, no, uncertainty is the spotlight that reveals leadership. That was a phrase, that was a statement that we used a lot during the pandemic. And can you believe it's been 6 years already since the pandemic, no? Whether that went fast for you or, kind of went slowly. We all had different experiences, but definitely that was one of the common thing that we experience, a lot of uncertainties. Ano na bang mangyayari? And definitely that brought a lot of introspection as to, oh, what am I going to do? And related to that is the values that we have. And recently we discovered this tool, right, of the values in action, no? And values in action basically just looks at, how the things that we believe in can sometimes be in conflict now when you are working with a team. And so your values, understandably, diba, is your lens by which you define your leadership journey. It's like an invisible operating system which dictates every decision. So it's not so much that when experience this friction, it's not that, ano ba naman to, this person is not performing, but maybe when you look deeper into it, it's really because you see things quite differently, but it could be the same value. So a case in point, no, if you are, for example, a high performer, which a lot of new managers are, right? If you came from really good track record, chances are you will likely be selected for new positions, bigger responsibilities, and you value excellence. But now, when you are working with a group, excellence is not so much at the speed by which you want to do it, at the ways by which you want to, the manner by which you want to do it. So the old mindset tells us that I'm successful when I complete my task and demonstrate my brilliance, right? I show my method, I show them how it's done at record speed, at, impeccable performance. But now, it's no longer about us. It's not about how successful I am, but how my team actually completes the task. So it might not be the excellence now, it's not the speed by which they're doing, but maybe how they were able to come up, the process by which they came up with the solution. So at first glance, that might be like a conflict. But when you look at it, both are actually looking at excellence. It's just that the approach might now be very different. And it takes self awareness, it takes a lot of looking at values that I might have as a person, but now seems to not be happening when it comes to my team. So, one of the suggestions really is to look at now, when people transition to management roles, is what are the things that are important to me? For those who are in relationship, I could say probably the same thing, right? I mean, when you enter into a serious commitment, there comes a point where when conflicts arise, but hopefully even before that point, arrives, you already look at what's important, the non-negotiable. So same thing for management. And I think this is quite a given. Medyo cliche na nga if I would say so. It's one of the shifts in perspective is obviously from me to we. That's easier said than done. Because really, especially when we look at mga supervisors, 'di ba? Palagi kong naririnig yung mga sinasabi, ako na nga, 'di ba? Naku, kung ako lang yung gumawa niyan, mas mabilis sana. Tapos na yan kanina pa. Right? May gigil, no? May frustration, and understandably so, because if it were you, then, it would have been done differently. But now you are no longer the player. You are now looking at, coaching, helping your team to collective success. You're no longer the doer. You're already a multiplier, an enabler to your team success. You're no longer seen as the expert. There could be multiple experts in your team now. So you just facilitate by asking the right questions. You're no longer the friend. How many of you can relate na dati kasama ka sa group chat, 'di ba? Tapos nung na-promote ka, 'di ba? Wala na, may sarili na silang group. And sometimes, by accident, you will realize na, ay, nagka-chat na pala sila on the side, no? And, I've learned that that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are just some things that now revolve amongst them. And you as a supervisor, you as the manager who now oversees things, no longer are privy to those things, no, to those matters. But what we are expected to do is to be respected, no, at the very least, is to be respected even behind your back, right? And again, like we said, from technical depth, you now have the strategic breadth or understanding of what goes on, so that you see from a bigger picture, right? So a lot going on. And even as I say this, again, no, parang ang dali tignan, and it's even easy to recognize these things, pick it off the table and say, oh, okay, yeah, I know this already. But doing it, even undergoing the transition, will not take a week, a few months. Sometimes, a number of these things you learn over time. Diba? And that's why we say also that it's an ego check, really. Um, I would say, and this is maybe like a personal stake in this, that leadership is really one of the most humbling paths, no, to take. People ask, why would I get promoted? Bakit ako hahanap ng batong ipupukpok sa ulo ko? When I'm happy with my job, I can just get maybe increased compensation. I'd be happy without the headache. But I would say that it is really very rewarding. It speaks into a different level of fulfillment, that individual recognition, individual satisfaction can only go so much. And I would say, and this is my conviction, that leadership really is fundamentally a journey to becoming a better human being. Unfortunately, there are situations where we see the worst of people when put in positions, no, of leadership. But I would say that if done well, if we really are able to manage it, prepare for it, do the work, then it becomes something rewarding, and it becomes that we find we're all the better for it, no, throughout the journey. So that's the first, a shift in identity. Now we look at the influence shift. So like I mentioned, it's no longer just about us. I think this, for majority of people who are transitioning to management positions, the stressful part is the people part. Agree or agree? 'Di ba? 'Di ba parang yun yung nakaka-stress, parang pagawa mo na sa akin lahat ng tasks and I will take the headache. But talking to people and dealing with, the stresses of their issues, oh my gosh, put it all on the table. Across generation, multi-generational teams, 'di ba? The delineation between your personal and professional, all these things. So really, when we talk about influence shift, it's about moving from a position of authority, which, once you take a position, one of the teachers that I had, mentors, would say you enter into a grace of office. I love that. I love that term. No? The grace of office. Kumbaga, wala ka pang ginagawa, no? Kapag ikaw ay tumungtong na doon sa position mo. Once you have said yes, and you have accepted the role, you enter into this grace of office, which, by virtue of the that office, it's extended to you, the privileges of it, the authority of it. So it's kind of like building up, no, so that you don't um disgrace the office, hopefully, no, but kind of build more, no, on the foundation that your predecessor hopefully has built around. I love that idea. So influence, no, the influence shift. So I thought it might be interesting for us to dwell a little bit on this one. What is influence? And influence, if you look at the dictionary, is really all about the effect, no, that you have when it comes to a person's character development and behavior. But put it in the lens of leadership, it's really all about shaping a person's potential. So I'll just leave you with a thought here. I always say that we are the sum of the people who have influenced us. Isn't that true? Whether that be your parents, from the time you were young, especially in your family dynamics. I'm the eldest of four, so I can speak from experience that, being an ate shapes you in a way that maybe is unique. The ates and the kuyas over there, okay, can I get a thumbs up and a reaction, 'di ba? 'Di ba? It's quite a unique situation. So that family dynamics in school, obviously, some of us would also have opportunities in organizations, no. I grew in a space, particularly within the sports environment, so I would say that a lot of my understanding and shaping of leadership was within that space. But a number of us, maybe in student government, in theater, I know, right? So there's a lot. So anytime that, we are able to shape the character of someone, we help to develop or maybe misdevelop or underdevelop, or impact their behavior, we are actually influencing. And that's why, di ba, we use the term loosely now, di ba? Influencers abound in the social media. And that's why it's so interesting, because especially the younger generation are being shaped more and more by influencers, people from outside. So their character, their development, their behavior, very much shaped. So, in much the same way, I'd like to ask, what is your influence, especially towards the people that you lead? If I ask them and I conduct a quick survey of your level of influence, would they say that you have had a positive impact in the way that their character has evolved? Nagka-character arc ba sila? Because they were working with you? Have they developed, maybe new skills or their attitude, their behavior, because they were influenced by you? Something to think about. The third shift is the skill shift. And, I'm introducing another term here. When we are individual contributors, our technical skills are honed very much. But as we go up the ladder, as we become more developed, hopefully we are able to increase in our adaptive skills. And for those who are familiar, no, that is a kind of leadership as well, where you navigate complex things, no, hindi na lang siya, 'di ba, 1 plus 1 equals 2, 'di ba? There's a lot of ways by which we can take a look at a problem. Things can be ambiguous, 'di ba? I think nag-evolve na yung term natin na VUCA, 'di ba? um, and so this particular crisis, no, this fuel crisis, I know through a lot of us kind of off the rails. Hello 2026, 'di ba? Kumusta naman? Wala pa tayo sa Q2. Papasok pa lang tayo ng Q2, parang, oh my gosh, what is happening? So, it really pushed us to think about, it's no longer technical skills. Technical skills won't cut it, but adaptive skills. And here, I would say that what are, in essence, where it actually revolves is, and engaging, the complexity of engaging your head, the way that you think about things, how fast you make decisions, the way you relate with other people, and the way that you deliver results. So all these things make up for those technical, no? A movement from technical to adaptive skills, no? Hindi lang pwedeng nag-e-engage yung head natin, no? The head space. Gumagaling nga tayo in the way we analyze data, which I know a lot of us are invested in, but are we also engaging, which adaptive leadership really speaks a lot to the heart so that we can actually deliver. So from here, there's a lot. And honestly, there's a lot of work to be done. I'm happy that most of the participants we have in the room today have said that you are already taking proactive steps towards addressing this. But, I would like to enumerate maybe five of the gaps that we are still seeing in the marketplace right now. And gap number one, particularly for those transitioning, is the no transition support. No, I mentioned this earlier, this idea of sink or swim. No, magaling ka naman eh, 'di ba? High potential ka nga eh. Kaya ka nga na-promote because, you can, you probably do well. But, in leadership frameworks, you have the self, you have the follower, 'di ba? The leader, the follower, and the context. And obviously context changes. A huge change in context is when you move someone from an individual contributor to an enabler. And so, what might have worked before might not work anymore. So the assumption and to expect that our people will actually perform fantastically, no, it might not. They might down the line, but they do need adjustment as well, right? And this again, we talked elaborately about this identity shift, right, from getting the work done to now enabling others to do so. So this is a very crucial, no, do we have transition support for our managers? The second gap is metrics, and this one might be a little bit controversial, no, because it's very difficult to set metrics, no, to measure. But I would say it's really revolving around, activity. Sometimes when we make effort, okay, the number of projects that we have launched, etc., it makes for measuring if a team is doing well, okay, because the effort is being put in, their tasks are being completed, etc. But is it really translating to how well the team is actually performing? You know, when you look at it, watak-watak sila, hindi na nag-uusap, hindi na natutulog yung mga tao, 'di ba? So, it's not necessary that you have increased activity means that the impact is also going really well. So, how do we address that? Maybe something to think about, right? How do we measure the individual versus the collective success of people? If only one person is actually doing well, the rest are actually lagging, do we consider that as a win for the manager? Maybe something to think about. Third is the avoidance of difficult conversations. Again, when we talk to new leaders, they tell us that, it's really people that we have difficulty with. And, I don't want to generalize, I am not in the space to actually, but maybe for some, nagkakahiyaan tayo, di ba? Ayaw nating i-confront yung mga tao. And we think that anyway, as long as we are harmonious, there are no outbursts there, then maybe we are doing well. I know this because I am engaged in a lot of team dynamics. I came from a team background. So leadership for me involves a lot of team dynamics. No? So I mentioned I was in team sports before. My dissertation was about team sports as well. So I am, the natural lens for me to look at is team dynamics in any organization. And I know it to be true that the absence of conflict does not necessarily mean the team is performing well. And so this might be, it's just the guys, no? Maybe it's just people not having the right tools, or maybe being very hesitant to actually have those tough conversation. Or maybe it's because feedback has left a sour taste in their mouth. Alam mo yun? Parang negative experience in feedback. And feedback is really just one of the areas that needs to be improved upon, right? No upward management. So sometimes you could be very good at managing upward, but maybe your team not so much, or you're very good at managing your people, but managing upward not so much. 'Di ba? Alam natin to, 'di ba? Because when you're in the middle, you are sandwiched in between these two levels. So sometimes the disjoint in the expectations, or the inability for the middle management to translate ground level realities. Ano yung nangyayari sa baba to senior leadership, which creates that frustration. And last, I think a lot of people can once again relate this overload. Diba? Diba? You're caught in between. Am I going to jump in? Am I going to help? Am I getting myself involved here? The player coach burden, and the decision fatigue. Kasi ang daming kailangan desisyonan, right? How do I balance everything? So all these things, realities, so these are just some of the things that maybe, again, you can relate with. And so what can we do? No, what can we do? So, one of the things, this is very passionate. So I shared with you the head, the heart, and the hands. And simply put, really, it's you increase your influence, which is critical to leadership, with the way you think. Diba? Think about it. Maybe you have really been impressed, or you like being around people whose thought process is just, wow, I didn't think of it that way. 'Di ba? Yung parang, wow, buti na lang nandyan ka because you allowed me to see it from a different perspective. We respect leaders who are able to think that way, no? And we can't do that if we don't allow ourselves and give ourselves bandwidth to actually think. And so what is critical here, and I'm giving some insights into maybe some areas that our leaders might need support on: decision making, critical analysis, and structured problem solving, no? Because managers need to be able to think clearly or have the right tools under pressure. Now, when we look at the heart, which is really engagement, you can't really teach empathy, or that's one school of thought. You can over time, if you have the right tools. And there are ways by which we do, steps by which we do it, like coaching, right? The buzzword in the past has been this psychological safety, right? But really, at the end of it, is being able to build trust so that you are able to unlock the potential of more people in your team, right? So the way you relate, no, you cannot separate it, no? Kahit na gaano tayo kagaling, unfortunately, especially in the age where AI, no, has been helping us get to answers and analysis very quickly, this is going to be a determining factor in driving results within teams. And the last, of course, is, my mentor used to always say, okay, you could be the best communicator, but if you're not able to show results, then it's all for naught. And so as managers, we need to learn how to delegate. It's very difficult, but we need to learn how to delegate, facilitate, and obviously so that we can influence to execute. Not because we're able to do everything, not because we're supermen and superwomen, but because we're able to deliver through our people. And so with that, I hope that, it gives you kind of like a sense of where to look at. For those who are already rolling out programs, maybe you are already touching on any one of these dimensions, and that's great. Maybe there are some areas here that you might want to dig deeper. This is not exhaustive. Ms. Kara was talking earlier about tailor fit solution, or what we say best fit to your organization. Each organization would have its own journey, its own needs, its own set of leaders with different needs. And so you need to be able to tailor fit this particular journey, no, according to your managers and to your leaders. So with that, I'll stop here, and hopefully this helps us, no, kind of give a push into a momentum towards looking into this space and hopefully helping in developing and addressing this crisis, building more equipped and ready first time managers and leaders into the future. So, thank you so much, everyone, for listening and for engaging. I can see you, I can see the reactions and some of these feedback. Yes, if you do have some um, questions, clarifications, thoughts, I would very much love to hear those. We're going to, I think we have some time for some Q&A, no? I enjoy the Q&A because here is where we can have like conversations about it. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so
Not
much.
here. Not yet. They're not
Yes,
leaving.
yes.
Some are texting me. I got a
Okay.
few questions from those who are
Fantastic.
shy to put it on chat. So they said, because you talked about developing leaders, but
Mhm.
a question here says, but how do you manage the risk of leaders who leave the organization after we have invested in their development? Because you can't stop them from leaving also.
Yes.
Some of them are in your leadership program, but they leave even before you're done with developing them.
Yes, yes. My HR friends, where you at? I feel your pain because I know that you invest a lot, you plan for these things. But, I was talking to one of the consultants as well who transitioned to a full-time work in HR. And she was saying how it's inevitable. It's a reality. People will leave, but it's an investment. We can't not do it because the risk is just bigger and greater if we don't.
Mhm.
And in the long run, if we keep looking at the lack and the negative implications, of course, there's a threshold to that. Factors we might need to revisit, but in the end, tayo din yung makukulangan, 'di ba? Parang the pipeline for really advancing leaders that are homegrown, which a lot of our managers, prefer because they know the ins and outs. To train and to onboard from outside usually also takes a lot of effort as well. So I would say that it's a must, and it's a necessity for us to have a continuous development that takes care of our pipeline of leaders.
Even if the risk will always be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the same way that there's a question from Aya. She
Mm-hmm.
said that how do you deal with the newly promoted manager who wants to go back to being an IC again? As she said,
Wow,
some
very interesting.
prefer to be, I want to go back to my old role where I have friends and I'm with the same group chat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
Yeah.
very interesting, no? Parang nandun na tapos bumalik. Parang a change of mind. Parang no return, no refund. Yan, sabi mo no return, no refund. Um, I think it would be an interesting conversation to have. I think as a case to explore because I think there might be several factors here, right? Was it expectations that was not met? Maybe at the beginning there were certain things in her mind that his or her mind that oh, this is how it's going to be, and then once they stepped into the
Yeah.
role, hindi pala yun. And so that's one important thing, right? Leveling of expectation. That's part of the mindset shift that we talk about. Um, having honest conversation with the leader. Sometimes it's really the manager's fault, no? The ones they sugarcoat, they try to make the position attractive so that sige ma-promote, 'di ba? Parang so we can fill the position tas biglang ay hindi pala yun yung expectation. So I think honest because at the end of the day it's going to be us who's going to bear the brunt of it, 'di ba? We exert so much effort on boarding, but there's a disjoint with it. So I think understanding what the expectations were in the first place and then seeing where the disjoint comes from
Mm.
might
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
When they get into the role, they're not surprised na ito pala yun. I wanna go back. There's no going
Nagulat siya.
back.
Parang,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, yeah,
A
yeah. This is not what I
conversation. Yeah,
signed
I
up for.
agree.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there's another one. How do you deal with generational problems in workplace?
Nako, I think to that we will need the help of AI. There's lots of understanding when it
It's a,
comes to a
but it's a
generational cohort.
completely new topic.
Exactly.
We will we will schedule another session on generational problems in the
Yes.
workplace. Okay. But here,
Very interesting.
as a challenge I've observed that first-time managers experience in our organization is the challenge of leading team members who are older than them or much
Mhm.
senior in terms of experience. Some they're close friends even before. So what are your thoughts on this?
It cannot be helped.
Yeah.
And I think the new managers need to brace themselves. Whether it happens now
Mm-mm.
or later on, is just a fact that you will either work and manage peers
Mm-mm.
or other people from external organizations. And so I think one is recalling what I said earlier about setting expectations. There's an exercise we call leadership journey, which is a very good exercise to level of um, expectations at the beginning and to kind of reintroduce yourself as this new persona. I mean, I'm still Danica. I'm not, not like, unless gusto mo talaga like a new look and everything. But it's very important that, as diba, I mentioned earlier, stepping into the grace of office. Part of it is also rethinking, repackaging how you present yourself. I remember very well the first time that I one yeah the my one of the early managers I had, he was quite big in dressing up differently, a shift in the way that I even dress up. Sabi niyo, because it matters how you present yourself. Those things, without even saying anything, triggers this sense from your peers that, oh, there's something different. She's reestablishing herself as now an authority, no? And may kantsawan yan, syempre sabihin nila, "Uy, nag-iba ka na," 'di ba? Sasabihin mo, "Talaga, nag-iba na talaga ako." 'Di ba? Not because you're mayabang, hindi dahil nagmamayabang tayo, but because that's also important, no? They need to know that a new era has entered, no? So that even the dynamics will change. So yeah.
Yeah, there are several. If we cannot read all of them, we promise
Mm-hmm.
answer them, but let me just read a few more. There's a question by Nathaniel that is similar to
Mm.
an earlier question about handling people who are older than you and are
Mm.
more tenured. And then see Raymart asked about any books you can recommend to read about being a
Ooh.
leader. Sem I think there are several, but maybe you can just email that.
Yes, yes, yes. But I
Yes.
will quickly say one of my favorites, foundational one, is Leadership on the Line.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
it's a yellow covered book. That's one of my favorites. Foundational. So yeah, might want to start a simple read, but very, very effective. Introduces adaptive leadership there as well from the authors. Mhm.
Okay. And then, nahanap daw niya yung social media account mo. Para ma-follow ka.
Naku. Ah,
Okay.
it's the same. There's no persona change here. It's
Okay,
my
and then
name here is the same name that you will find elsewhere. So
hanapin yung mabuti. May price ang makahanap. Okay, and then Eric said, if AI is part of how we work now, what is one
Mm.
mindset shift every new manager or aspiring leader should start practicing? Very popular ang AI kasi ngayon eh.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Um,
Mindset shift.
it's so cliche, but yeah, it's here to stay. But I
Mhm.
would say um foundation is key. I'm very pragmatic when it comes to the use of AI in that you need to understand what you are feeding. It's not
Yeah.
a relegation of the task to a machine, because at the end of the day it's still a machine who thinks
Mm.
more efficiently for us. If we
Yes.
don't understand the issues, if we don't analyze first and understand from our level what the real cause is, it will just spew and confuse us. I'll be very frank. I've tried, no? Parang, when you're at wit's end, parang, okay, paano ba to? And then, sige na nga, AI, help me.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes it confuses you more
Mm-mm.
because when we don't have an understanding, really, a good grasp of what the real issue is in the first place, AI will be of no use. It will just dilute, it will just confuse us. So
Mm-mm.
I would say still build the right foundation for us. Understand your numbers, do the work, and then see where AI can help us. And like I mentioned earlier, the heart aspect of our work is going to come in very importantly. Uh, you know, uh, essential because at the end of the day, we're still humans. In need of connection with everyone. So.
Mhm, mhm. Sabi nga, AI is there to help us, but it
Mhm.
is still us that tells AI what to do. They don't
Yes.
tell us what to do. So, yun
Yeah.
yung mindset then that you,
Right.
kasi like ako, I will not tell you how old I am because it is a characteristic. But I'm telling you that I needed to adapt also.
Mhm.
But I also use AI, but I use AI just to facilitate or just to help me think, but I still feed what I want. And I sometimes disagree with AI and I say, I don't think that's right. And that's
Right.
the proper, or I think that's the right mindset to take or keep. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then there's another question from Aya saying that thoughts on people managers who were appointed saying that they don't have a choice. While
Oh.
you are thinking, I will give my views on that.
Please, Miss Carol. Of course, no, lots of
Because
experience as well. Please,
yes, when
please.
you talk about high potential leaders, there are actually three aspects. It's not just the ability of the person to do the job, but the person must also want it. There's that
Mhm.
aspect of aspiration. Otherwise, sabi nga, I don't have a choice. You just placed me here. And that is what aspiration means. They have to like it. Some people would be happier where they are. Ito nga yung sabi, bakit gusto nila bumalik in being an individual contributor? Because that is their preference. That is where they are more effective at. Kaya ability as well as aspiration. And then of course, kanina yung question, you're developing someone, tas aalis. And that is what we call
Mhm.
engagement. And in
Mhm.
SHL research, these are the three criteria that you should look at when you're putting someone in a leadership role. You look at the ability, kaya ba niya? Gusto ba
Mhm.
niya? At
Mhm.
stay ba siya?
Yeah.
So, so
May
now your
aspect na
turn,
gano'n.
Danica.
Yes, yes, yes. No, no, I agree with you. There are tools that measure and look at those, right? There's an importance with the willingness as well, no? Because they might be really good in terms of the work, but
Yeah.
willingness, of course, also influences the attitude. So,
Mm-mm.
and sometimes, that carries more weight. Kasi pwedeng ituro yung skills, but
Yeah.
the attitude and the willingness very difficult to drive and shape.
There are still a few more questions, but I
Mm.
don't think we have time to
Mm.
answer all of them. Kasi
Yeah, we're
baka
taking note.
basahin ko yung isa, sabihin ng iba, hindi ko binasa. So, while there are still a number of them,
Yes,
let's
yes,
start
yes.
them, but we promise to answer them. So,
Mm.
what's next? Dami kasi, but we will answer all of this. So, I think, what's the next part? Maybe I should call Paulo to officially close the session because it's already 4 o'clock.
I know it's the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Miss Carol, and thank you so much, Danica, for sharing valuable insights this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you. Thank you, everyone.
absolutely. The discussion this afternoon reminds us that transitioning to leadership is not just a promotion, but also really a change in identity, capability, and influence. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to be flashing a quick survey to help us out in improving our future webinars. So once again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. And we look forward to having you in our future webinars as we celebrate our 20th anniversary. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, Danica. Thank you also, Danica.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.